Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For Checking TV. I'm your host, Doug Glackey. Alongside me are my co-hosts, Scotty Porterfield and Peyton Trollinger. Boys, how are we doing this evening?
The sun is setting and it's not even 6 o'clock, or it's just now 6 o'clock. So it's not exactly the the ideal conditions, but it is what it is, I guess. So
Yeah.
so much fun.
Same, just like Scotty, same thing.
Yeah, this is the time of the year where you really need to basically just find a way to trick your brain.
It's literally what it is.
It's brutal. It's not good. But lots of good things going on in hockey. To lead it off, Jack Eichel did indeed get traded to the Vegas Golden Knights
Finally,
for Alex Tuck, by the way, which is wild. I literally, when we recorded last week, I literally just spitballed that and it ended up coming to be. So that's pretty nuts on my end.
Yeah, I mean, this was obviously we knew the deal was pending, and we'd seen all the rumors that it was going to happen. And then finally, we woke up the next morning after the pod had been uploaded, and next thing you know, Jack Eichel is a Vegas Golden Knights. So good to see that they they didn't really have to give up a king's ransom, I guess. At least Vegas didn't, in order to make that deal happen. And hopefully it benefits both sides, obviously, because I mean we'll see how long it takes Jack Eichel to get ready. They're saying that it's not looking good for him to even play during the Olympics right now, from the latest report that I read. So honestly, if you can have him back by the time you're ready to push for the playoffs, I think that's all you really need if you're Vegas.
yeah, it's good that he's finally on a different team. You know, they're going to finally let him get the surgery that he really needs just to get back to where he's at. And it's going to be good to see Jack Eichel in his full form later this year.
Yeah, it's exciting. Hopefully Vegas is able to stay okay while they have all these guys on LTIR. I'm not really sure how well that's going to shake out. But whenever he does come back, there's going to have to be a good bit of cap finagling that has to go down, because there's still going to be a couple $1 million over the cap. So I'd be looking for either Riley Smith or Evgeny Dadonov to potentially get moved out before the trade deadline, or at least before Jack's timetable is complete for the rehab and recovery process from the neck fusion, or from the disc replacement surgery.
Yeah, they currently have $27 million tied up in long-term IR between Eichel, Stone, and Pacioretty. And I mean, that's gonna, like you said, Doug, there's gonna be a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross in order for this to end up working out. It may cost. I mean, like you said, Riley Smith maybe end up being a piece that gets moved. I'm looking at Dadonov right now. He has a modified no trade clause, so I mean I'm sure it will cause some problems along the way as well. So a lot of potential movements that are going to have to be made in order for Vegas to get back under the ceiling. But it should be interesting to see how it plays out. If you get to have Jack Eichel as your number one center, it'll be worth it.
Definitely. And the biggest thing that I think we need to discuss is how deep this makes Vegas, at least at center now, because I mean, let's be honest, Chandler Stevenson was playing like a number one center, playing well above his means, and now he's going to go into a third line role where he can just do his thing whenever they're fully healthy. That's going to be nuts. When your center depth is Jack Eichel, William Karlsson, Chandler Stevenson, and probably Nick Roy, that's real good stuff.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I mean, definitely, like you said, there's definitely a lot of depth down the center at that point. And that was always the weakness with Vegas. Obviously, we talked about before how outside of William Karlsson popping off in that first year, what do they really have? You had Chandler Stevenson stepping up every now and then, but you can't expect that from him, consistently. Now that you have that true number one center, and you're going to get back your other wingers like Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty, Vegas being Vegas again. They're definitely prone to make some noise here once April and May roll around.
Well, and also too, they have all this depth, they have the big names, but what's really going to come down to is can they give the results? That's really what it comes down to. Whenever they get fully healthy, they got to be able to produce. There's going to be a lot of expectations on them, especially with Jack Eichel coming back. And on like if they don't perform, things are going to look really bad for Vegas, and it's going to be a very bad look. But I'm not saying they can't perform, but that's going to be the question. They got to come out, just hit the ground running, and as soon as they get healthy, just honestly, they could probably clinch the conference if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I'm not really too worried about what's going to happen after Eichel gets back. My biggest fear is that Eichel's going to come back at a point where they've struggled so mightily, and it might be too little too late for them to potentially sneak into a playoff spot or even be a hold of a playoff spot at that point whenever Eichel does get healthy. But anyways, what I was going to say was with moving somebody like Dadonov, if the Ducks are still in contention, I could see Anaheim making a trade for someone like Evgeny Dadonov, or maybe even calling Arizona to see what's going on with Phil Kessel if Phil wanted to go there. So like, I think they're going to have options because, let's be honest, there's a couple of teams right now, at least through the first month and a couple of weeks of the year, that probably shouldn't be in playoff contention, but are. And we don't really know whether or not they're going to, like if it does hold up, like, are they going to be like a conservative buyer at the deadline and do like a soft buy on like someone like Evgeny Dadonov or Riley Smith, who's on an expiring deal as well. Do a buy on someone like that when that team's essentially at the cap floor, like I think that you have the ability to unload a contract or something of that nature off on a team that's able to take it, just because all the guys on that team, all the guys on their ELC are just balling out and performing way above their means, similar to what's going on in Anaheim right now.
I know there was one team we wanted to touch on was Anaheim, just how well they've played. It's obviously still early in the season, but I mean, that's really been the team that's kind of surprised me the most. I think Arizona won last night too. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know that Ladd ended up getting a goal. But yeah, there's been a lot of teams that, like you said, Doug, they're just not, you don't expect them to make any noise when it matters. But right now, they're the teams that have definitely been, pushing the pace of play in terms of just playing well and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how much longer that ends up lasting. Because right now the Ducks are in a playoff position. I don't think anyone really expected them to end up there. I definitely did.
I'm so happy that the Ducks are finally starting to realize their potential because I have a little soft spot for Anaheim. Doug, I know you do as well. But just there's so much to be excited for about this team. Just the youth movement that they have, that young core that they're going to start developing. It's so solid. Drysdale, you got Sam Steele, Troy Terry, Zegras. I could go on. Those are very solid pieces to build on, especially if you want to build a dynasty, not just win a couple cups, a dynasty. Those are the players you're going to need. Obviously, they don't have it. They don't have everything figured out right now, but very good start. I really like where they're going.
Yeah, I agree, and like real quick, I'm just going to run through the teams that are in playoff spots right now that probably shouldn't be. Right away, the Detroit Red Wings, third spot in the Atlantic right now. The Columbus Blue Jackets having a wild card spot. The Devils still being in contention for a wild card spot right now without Jack Hughes. The Ducks, like we said, the Sharks and the Preds both probably shouldn't be playoff teams, and this is interesting because, things are going to flip flop, especially in the Western Conference, because Chicago's not what we all thought they were going to be. Seattle's bad. The Avs are without Nathan McKinnon for a little bit, and the way the Dallas Stars are going, by I'm not going to say Christmas, but I would say probably by the end of January, I would not be surprised if Rick Bowness is fired. Like it's just nuts where we're at. And to touch on Troy Terry, man, I need to talk about Troy Terry because he's been unbelievable. They have Troy Terry's on a 13-game point streak to start the year. And he has 16 points right now, leading the team in both goals and points. He has 9 goals and 7 assists for 16 points. And let's be honest, there was a time last year around the trade deadline where it seemed like Troy Terry was going to get moved. It didn't seem like he was going to stay there. Similarly enough with guys like Isaac Lundstrom and Sam Steele as well. Like it looked like Bob Murray was getting ready to like pull the plug on some of these minor plug and play guys they have. And honestly, we're pretty fortunate that he didn't for several reasons, some of which we're probably going to get into here in a little bit. But yeah, Troy Terry balling out to start the year is very encouraging and very big. Having a guy like this perform at this level is what changes rebuilds. Like it's what flips rebuilds on their back completely. Like, for instance, look at how good Igor Sharangovich is for the Devils. You think they were expecting that whenever they drafted him? There's no chance. I think they drafted him in like the 5th or 6th round, and he ended up being this good. And there's a whole I could go off about this Ducks roster because like I'm gonna read you their forward lines right now, and because it doesn't make sense that they're playing this well. Like I don't understand it. For instance, Trevor Zegras is playing on a line with my best friend Nick Delorier. Like, how the hell does that happen? So the top line's Henrique, Getzlav, and Terry, which that's good. That's respectable. Second line's Nick Delorier, Trevor Zegras, Sonny Milano. This third line might be one of my favorite lines that I've seen in a while. It's Mason McTavish, Isaac Lundstrom, and Maxime Comtois. And then their fourth line is literally Derek Grant and 2 guys that should be playing in San Diego right now, and would be if it wasn't for their injury situation. Anaheim's defense has always been good. John Gibson, although that contract's going to age horribly, he's still kind of okay right now, but something we need to keep in mind, like they have Ricard Raquel and Max Jones on injured reserve right now. Those are 2 key contributing players. Like we're not talking about just random plug and play guys. Those are 2 guys that should be playing in your top 6 every night, and if this team's still in contention down the stretch, I'm just going to come out and say it. Go save Phil Kessel from Arizona. Go do it, because we all know that the Coyotes are going to be in the business of taking on contracts, and that might just be your best bet at getting Jakob Silverberg or Adam Henrique off your payroll. I think that is big, and I could see them doing something like that, because the Ducks, if they are still in playoff contention, they would be one of the few teams that would be able to take Phil on at the $6.8 million cap hit, where the Arizona Coyotes aren't eating money and paying him to stay away from the team.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge possibility there. Going back to what you were saying about Terry, he's been the biggest surprise for me, not just with this Anaheim team, but just the season in general. When you look at the Ducks, there was so much hype around Trevor Zegras whenever he first came on board, because everyone was, he's like, oh, he's young, he's American, he's got a chance to be, a potential superstar and whatnot. Now you look at Troy Terry. Troy Terry is the big dog on that team right now, and it's like you said, that's the type of guy where he pops up out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, okay, now we have this. This is a pleasant surprise. Now we can, maybe this advances your rebuild or cuts it off a year or two shorter. That maybe that's what it seems like right now. The way he's been playing so far, he seems like he can be that type of guy to, push him a little bit forward. So, yeah, good kudos to Anaheim so far. They've had a good start, and we'll see if the clock strikes midnight, they can keep it going, because right now they've been handling business out west.
One thing I just want to add to is just the fact that, I'm just looking through the roster here, just kind of like the points. One thing that's really going to help Anaheim is that whenever you get guys like Maxime Comtois, if you get those kind of guys to score on a nightly basis, that's really going to help just the depth of your team a lot, and not relying on your big guys like Terry and, all the other big guys to get all your points. So they definitely need to, keep the depth scoring up, or at least add to it, and then they'll be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing they're going to need down the stretch is they're going to need more from Sam Steele. He needs to figure out like what's going on and what his deal is. It's almost like that. I don't know if you guys have you've seen that sketch comedy show, I Think You Should Leave.
I haven't seen that one. What's that one?
Damn, never mind. Actually, no, I'm just gonna go out and say it. Like, we're at a point where it's like that one skit where we got to figure out what Chunky does. We got to figure out what Sam Steele does. I mean, this was a guy that I would say a year and a half to 2 years ago, like we thought that he was going to be the future of the Ducks, and now he's like just kind of like right now he's healthy scratched. And it's like figure out your role. Like you don't have to be a superstar. If you're able to carve out a career being like an Alexander Kerfoot, where you play like a grinder but can still play up in the top 6 here and there, do it. Do it, make that happen. And my other hot take right now is, as it sits this evening, with injury situations and things taken into account, I think Troy Terry's on the 4th line for Team USA, or he's at least one of the 2 extra forwards.
I've seen people trying to make that case for him, and it's not a bad thought, honestly. I understand that we're still fairly early on and whatnot, but I mean, you can definitely make that case if you wanted to, that you could potentially work him in there. I still don't know. It just depends. It depends on a lot of things have to happen, I'd say, in order for that to really work out. Because I mean, if we're looking at USA, you figure. I know I'm trying to avoid Olympic talk because we did it for so long, but we're gonna go back into it here. You figure your first line's probably gonna end up being probably something like either a DeBrincat, Matthews, or Kane, and you'll have potentially Goudreau with Larkin and Connor. Probably have the Kachuk brothers, JT.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have Gensel in there, Jack Hughes if he's healthy, Pacioretty if he's healthy, and then Chris Kreider, and maybe Troy Terry, maybe somebody else. Who knows? Another guy, and then on the back end, of course, you'll have the usual suspects and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the guy who's kind of in the same boat as him, only for Team Canada, is Mangiapane for Calgary.
I saw Mangiapane and Drake Batherson as well.
If you think about it, low-key, those guys. Those are 2 guys who are kind of in the same boat as Troy Terry, where it's like, you keep playing like this, you're gonna catch somebody's eye. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mangiapane being on the 4th line for Team Canada, spicy. I really, really like it. Like, I would not hate it if it happened. So, yeah. Peyton, you got anything or no?
Honestly, I was just gonna say kind of like what Scotty was. Just like, it's not impossible for Troy Terry to Like he definitely deserves to be in that conversation of fourth line Team USA roster. There's no denying that. And if he continues to play like that, he'll earn that spot. I fully believe that. So nothing new, just kind of what you guys said.
Yeah, I agree. Just real quick, just to touch on it. Bob Murray resigned as the Ducks general manager. Obviously, he was under investigation for probably like, I'd say he was under investigation for like 24 hours. And then he decided to resign and go into an alcohol assistance program. You know, send in positive vibes to him, but at the same time, it's like, would anything have happened to the guy if all the carnage that came out of the Blackhawks investigation didn't occur? You know, because I mean, there's been players that have said, like on podcasts before, like for instance, Ryan Whitney thinks that Bob Murray is one of the worst human beings he's ever met in his life, and stuff like that. It's nuts. I think that this could potentially be the beginning of the end for the for like hockey men.
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, this kind of stuff is not, the Mike Keenans of the world are not gonna, or the Bob Murrays and all those guys. They're coming to an end now, I think. And the thing is, like with those guys, they think they will try and hold power over you until you eventually, go back at them. That's literally the only way you can ever take down someone like that, or just not be intimidated by someone like that. They're gonna threaten you or play mind games with you. Sometimes you just gotta call them out on their BS. I think that's what it is. You're gonna have guys like that who act like SOBs for no reason other than the fact that they can, because they're in a high position. And sometimes guys just got to get put in their place. And obviously Bob Murray's got some things that he has to deal with away from the ice. And like you said, Doug, will wish him the best. But at the same time, it's like, the days of punking these players and coaches and whoever else, they're done. That's not happening anymore. And you can tell just by the way the players have responded and whatnot. They're moving on. They're ready to start something new.
And it's just not a good look for the sport. It really isn't. Whenever you get things like the Blackhawks scandal, you hear news about Bob Murray stepping down, going into an alcoholic assistance program. Like we said, good for him that he was able to make that decision. But it's really not a good look. We got to move past this era. I believe the NHL also needs to focus a lot more on players' mental health, because hockey is very, very stressful, even on the professionals. And we've seen multiple cases of it. We saw with Robin Leonard a while ago. He was having a lot of battles. Carey Price recently stepping away from the game, and all of this stuff. I just feel like players, staff, everyone just needs to know that it's okay to speak up and get things off your chest, and you should be able to play the sport that you love with a clear head and not be shamed for it or hazed for it. That's my opinion on that.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of what you just said, Peyton, is a big part of the reason why I think, I've seen a lot of people try to will Mike Babcock back into existence recently, specifically to coach the Blackhawks. And I think that if you are the Blackhawks organization, and if you're Rocky Wirtz, that's probably the worst PR move you could ever make. I understand it would probably appease Jonathan Toews from throwing a tantrum or whatever the hell it is that he did, where he basically had Stan Bowman in his back pocket. I think that's a big part of the reason why, Taves's comments after everything went down were as garbage as they were. I that's why I think, and that's another reason why I said that I think the Panthers are going to stick with Andrew Brunette, at least for right now, is because it's not that John Tortorella is a bad person by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, John Tortorella is an amazing guy. You can tell he means well. He's a very genuine human being. But is it really worth rocking the boat? That team's playing so well right now. Is it worth rocking the boat and potentially, throwing someone like Anthony Duclair off of their game with how well he's looked to start the year?
Yeah, Duclair's definitely had a great start to that year. But kind of something I want to touch on here. You kind of brought it up already, Dougie, low key, was the Hawks firing Jeremy Colton and the rest of his staff. What are we thinking about that right now? And do you think that's all it's going to take for Chicago to potentially right the ship? Me personally, I don't think it is, because I still think that team's got a lot of depth issues and whatnot. But yeah, what do you guys think?
I really don't think that it's going to change much. The damage has already been done in a sense. Well, would they go 1-9-2 to start the year, right? Something like that. And it's hard to dig yourself out of a hole like that. I'm not gonna lie, the defensive structure has been a little bit better under Derek King, but let's be honest, Father Time waits for nobody, and the clock strikes midnight at some point. I think that it's there for a good chunk of the Blackhawks core that's left. Obviously Kane's still amazing, but Taves just doesn't have it. Fleury, he's just, we all know that Fleury is only as good as his defense is, and right now the defense is absolutely god awful. And when your defense is being led / anchored by one Seth Jones, you're basically throwing your team into the depths of hell, in a sense. And it's, I really I think this team's a lottery team, as much as I hate to say it. Actually, I don't hate to say it, because Columbus gets that pick. I love to say it, actually. I want to see that. I want the chaos of, could you imagine if Shane Wright's, if they get Shane Wright because of that? Good God, I'm sorry. But yeah, I really just think that this team's done, which sucks, because they do have some good young players. I mean, Alex DeBrinket's really, really good. He's awesome. Dominic Kubalik's good. Kirby Dock's going to be an animal, I don't know if he's going to be true, superstar talent, but I think he's going to be that Jordan Stahl, magically score 50 to 60 points every year and play amazing defensively type of center. And that's the type of shit you win championships with.
Yep, very true. It's just like you said, Chicago's got a lot of things they have to address, moving forward, because obviously, they kind of went, make or break this offseason in a sense, and so far things haven't worked out for them. They have that potential. I just feel like they just don't have the the necessities to even make a playoff push right now, because after those guys that you mentioned, what do they really have? I mean, even to an extent with Kirby Doc, I've been following him a little bit this season. He hasn't exactly been playing that well. I think he's got maybe 5 points in 13 games, so it's not like he's lighting the scoreboard up. Can't say I don't think Kubalik is either, to be honest. So I mean, those guys that you need to kind of maybe carry their weight a little bit aren't doing it, and it's obvious that you don't have any depth after Taves, Kane, and DeBrincat. So it's not a recipe for long-term success, is what I'm getting at.
Well, and we saw the Blackhawks dynasty throughout the 2010s, and unfortunately, like you said, Doug, you said it perfectly. Father Time just waits for nobody. And this is the Blackhawks' time to pay the piper for those cups. And not only are they paying for it with the sexual assault cases, but now they're going to pay for it for their performance. And honestly, like, they're doing it to themselves. Like, they made a lot of, like, I'd call them media moves this season. They got Flower, Marc-Andre Fleury, who, everyone loves, except for a few people. But, they got him, made a lot of big moves. They signed Seth Jones to an egregious, horrible contract. And people considered him like the best defenseman. And since the media consider those two players good, they're gonna just fall down the hole now. And it's just got it happens. Happens to the best of teams, happens to the worst of teams. And they're gonna have to pay for it this year.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like this team's cooked. I really, you know, and like, you think about all the stuff that Stan Bowman's done as a general manager since the second cup, or since like the third cup in what was that, 2015 now?
Yep.
Like the amount of like off the wall things he did to just like keep the band back together was insane. Like, I don't know how anyone trades Artemi Panarin and Teuvo Teravainen in the same offseason and keeps their job. Plus, I mean, they had Phil Deneau. They traded Phil Deneau for Dale Weiss.
When did that happen?
That happened,
What's that?
I want to say like 2014, 2015-ish. I don't remember. But like,
I don't remember seeing that.
what I'm trying to get at is not only was Stan Bowman a horrible human being, he was also beyond god awful at his job. It should have been, dealt with much, much sooner than when he did, but moving forward, since you brought up the special boy, you brought up Flower, we need to segue into my rant segment of why is there all of a sudden a bastardization of Tristan Jarry. Jarry is like literally the only reason the Penguins have been somewhat okay this year. I mean, and everybody gets all like upset. They're like, oh, he keeps dropping shootout games, blah, 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 blah. But like, I'd rather him be good at everything else and be absolutely god awful in the shootout. Because for a better part of 10 to 12 years, we didn't have that. We had the guy that was horrible at everything else, but amazing in the shootout. And, I'm not with that. I think, the other thing that bugs me is like everybody just attacking, like, everybody's like, oh, the Penguins suck. Like, no, the process is in place. Like, it's there. If you go look at metrics, they're poised for a major breakout. Like, they're going to be absolutely, granted, something weird occurs with like PDO where it's not in their favor. They're going to be absolutely insane whenever Sid comes back and whenever Malkin is healthy. They're going to be unbelievable, and I don't understand it. Like, I just feel like people don't like the math aspect of the game, like, and everybody gets all upset. I mean, I still see people screaming into the void about how they don't think that Zach Aston Reese is an NHL caliber player. How in the hell do you come up with that take? Where do you get that from? And the other thing that I need to just like this one's going to be what you got to pull me in on. People will scream their heads off about Chris Letang, but will laugh or think Mike Matheson is doing his job whenever Mike Matheson does whatever the hell he does. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, are you serious right now? Like, I can't get past it. I mean, the truth is, our two healthy scratch defensemen and POJ, who's normally in Wilkes-Barre, all three of them can outlay better results than Mike Matheson can. It's the same. It's the Justin Schultz is what the brain dead portion of the fan base thinks Chris Letang is conundrum coming again. I can't believe it, you know? And like, I don't understand how anybody could even criticize Letang's play up until this point. Like, he's been amazing. And I think there's absolutely no correlation whatsoever that they are able to win games when Chris Letang's in the lineup, because they went to hell for a couple of days whenever that man was on the COVID list. And now, obviously, they're not winning games, but they're stealing points in overtime and shootout losses. Largely in part to Letang's play and the play of Tristan Jarry, you know? And I mean, you know, I can't get past it. Like, the fact that somebody could come out and say they are not on board with Zach Aston-Reese being on this roster just blows my mind. I can't.
The reason why they're saying that, Doug, is because they're looking at his goals and assists and points and saying, oh, he doesn't score points, so that's why he's not good. They don't see like the things he does away from the puck, which is honestly the best part of his game. People only see the value in the point totals in the point column, and that's what they base it off of, instead of, okay, when he's in his own zone, he's easily the most effective player that the Penguins have, or one of at least. With Jarry's complaint, I mean, I'm with you on that one. I mean, Jarry, yeah, he sucks in the shootout, but you know what helps? Winning the game in regulation or winning in overtime. Like we've literally had that format that's designed to end the game in overtime. I get that we don't have Crosby. I get that we don't have Malkin. There's no reason why we should be losing to Chicago. There's no reason why, you know, I know I said this before. I said that Jeff Carter was going to have to step up for us. He can't be the only one that does. Like, at some point, you know, Jay Gensel's got to remember that he's a potential Olympic athlete. You know, Brian Rust, same kind of goes for him. What's happened to him as of late? Don't know what his deal is. There are a bunch of other guys you can probably point the finger at too, but those are the two that are sticking out in my mind because, you know, I think they're that good, or at least I used to think that. So as far as all that's concerned, and Mike Matheson is just a dumpster fire, he's not even worth talking about. But yeah, there's a lot of things that the Penguins have to do. I mean, like I said, I get that you don't have Crosby and Malkin, and I hear what you're saying about the analytics, Dougie, about how, you know, this team's poised for a breakout. Well, right now they're a last place team. They are a last place team, and something has to change in order for that to, in order for us to not end up there. And the fact of the matter is that the Penguins, whoever they have left that needs to step up, isn't doing it. Jake Gensel's not playing well. Brian Rust isn't playing well. You know, I'm sorry, Jeff Carter can't be your best player. It can't happen like that. You're not going to have any success if 36-year-old Jeff Carter is your best hockey player. It's not going to happen.
Bold prediction. Now that you just had that little tangent there, Jason Zucker Hattie is coming in about 45 minutes.
That's another guy that I wouldn't mind seeing more than once a month. More than once a month, I mean. You know, it'd be nice to see Jason Zucker score more than once a month. That would be cool too, but whatever.
Peyton, what do you have? I know you have thoughts.
I mean, he's not wrong. You're not wrong, Scotty. Like, they literally are at the bottom of the Metro right now. I know they've been forcing these games to overtime, but when are we gonna stop and just end it? You get the points. 2 points goes a very long way when it comes to seeding. Now, overtime losses, in my opinion, or shootout losses, they're okay every once in a while because it is 1 point. But
2 points.
we gotta. 2 points is better. 2 points is better. 2 points literally could be the difference between making the playoffs and not making the playoffs.
And it's not even like,
Especially-
sorry to cut you off there, Payne, but it's not even like it's who we're losing those games to as well.
Yeah,
Like, why are we putting 6 up on Tampa and 7 up on Toronto, but we're dropping games in the shootout to Chicago or some other scrub team that we've lost. I don't know them offhand. I don't know. Hold on a second here.
I mean, Minnesota, they lost to Minnesota the other night and Freddie Gaudreau's their first line center.
Yeah,
yeah,
That can't happen.
I mean, so I'll give Minnesota a pass because they're on the top of their division, so I'll let that one slide. But still, no reason to lose to Chicago. None at all. Don't care.
yeah. It's just like I said, they're a last place team. They've been getting overtime losses, but they need to just literally like just screw their head on straight and like I said, don't care. There's not Crosby, no Malkin. We've seen them do it before. They need to start doing it again.
The last 3 games have gone to overtime or shooting
Mhm.
against Philly, Minnesota, and Chicago. So
Yeah, and those are all three.
And they also lost to Dallas. So that was the team I forgot about. Dallas. They lost to Dallas. In the shootout. That was the one that pissed me off. Yeah, losing to Dallas.
I didn't forget about that. I was there with a
You were
certain
there.
human being, and
there.
I was. It was bad. It was very bad. Yeah, that was another one. Like the only one that was really like acceptable was when they took Florida into overtime.
Yeah, because that's a good team. That's
Yeah,
a good
like
team.
they had no business taking Florida into overtime. The truth is they should have gotten absolutely rocked, but I mean, and the thing that's tough is like the thing that's so frustrating to see them at the bottom of the Metro right now is like in most of the games they have not played particularly bad. The only game where I truly think they played like garbage and were horrible was when they played Calgary.
Yeah.
That was the only one that truly concerned me.
Markstrom also stood on his head in that game too. So I mean, say what you will about it. Markstrom played out of his mind.
Yeah. Like
Are you there for that one too?
I wasn't, but I watched it, and he's like on another planet. I was there for the Minnesota one on Saturday night though. That was nuts. I mean, it was okay though. We got to see Kapanen score a hat trick.
Yeah, how about that guy finally getting off the schneid?
Dude. Literally, I was about to say that whatever you were talking about. It's like, are we taking Kasperi Kapanen off the list?
We probably shouldn't because he's only scored in 1 game so far. If I'm being honest, we probably shouldn't take him off. We can probably throw him up on there too because aside from absolutely torching Minnesota, he's done nothing else since then. So
Yeah. And the other thing that like is kind of driving me crazy is like they just randomly decided to throw Dan Heinen on the 4th line.
he's not scoring anymore.
But like he wasn't scoring because they put him on the 4th line.
True.
You know what I mean? Like he
shit.
had those good games, and then like right after he did score 1 game, like they just threw him on the 4th line. And I was like, this is kind of weird. I don't like this.
They're shaking things up, I guess. I don't know.
Speaking of shaking things up, Peyton, should I read that lineup off that I tweeted earlier?
I gotta double check it here. Let's find it.
On Twitter, the cap friendly one.
Yeah, the one that I made on a cap friendly thing.
Oh
I
yeah.
like that.
That I don't know how I feel. Like, I know I was just ripping him to shreds, but I don't know how I feel about Brian Rust on the 3rd line. I'd rather see Heinen there than him.
Okay, I could see that. So, in the midst of everybody trying to light Twitter on fire this afternoon and screaming about Zach Aston Reese and getting more than upset over not getting instant gratification with goal scoring, I thought to myself, like, how could I make a lineup that would, 1, maximize the Penguins' ability to get the most out of their lineup, and 2, piss everyone off at the same time? I think I've done it because here we go. Line 1, Jake Gensel, Sidney Crosby, Jason Zucker. They finally have enough depth at left wing where it would be socially acceptable to stack the top line and do this. We all know that this is where Zucker was at his best when he was playing with Crosby. And as much as I would love to see Gensel with Malkin, we're not going to do that at the expense of trying to, milk value out of Jason Zucker. At least Mike Sullivan's not going to do that. Line one, Danton Heinen, Evgeny Malkin, Kasperi Kapanen. Obviously, Heinen was on a shooting tear to start the year, but this would also give Malkin and Kapanen someone defensively responsible to play with, where they're not going to get cooked on the defensive side of the puck. And then the third line is Brock McGinn, Jeff Carter, and Brian Rust. I have had this belief for several years now that Brian Rust can carry his own line, similar to what Phil Kessel was able to do during his time in Pittsburgh. And I'm like to the point now where I am more than ready for them to explore it, especially since they have options to put up with Sid and Jake. And the fourth line, it's going to be one of Drew O'Connor or Evan Rodriguez with Teddy Bluger and Zach Aston Reese. Obviously, Rodriguez has been awesome to start the year. He's been okay, but at the same time, I like the idea of having O'Connor in there. Obviously he's a skilled player, but he also has that reach that I think would be very valuable towards a defensive fourth line like we're trying to get at here. And then the defense is Pedersen, Letang, POJ, Marino, and we're going to shelter Brian Dumoulin in a third pairing a little Chowder Wheel. Because I've hinted at this earlier. Dumoulin's been, obviously, prior to him going on the COVID list, he's been pretty damn bad. And, he's not a guy that I think you trade or try to get rid of. In a sense, I think if you were going to try and get rid of anyone on this defense, it would be somehow finding a way to rid yourself of Mike Matheson. Even if you have to take like some form of like a crappy draft pick compensation back in return, because one, you don't need him at all. Like, you have 3 to 4 other guys waiting in the wings that can play better than he can, and will come at a price tag that is close to $3.5 million cheaper. And two, I mean, like I said, like, you don't need him. And especially with the fact that, like, if you wanted to maximize Mike Matheson, you would think they would have him quarterback the second power play unit with how his offensive instincts are. But with them using Marino as the quarterback on that second unit, like, there's more than that. There's more reason for them not to keep Matheson around, like, and I'm not asking for some weird daily Friscaderi type garbage. I'm just asking for them to, like, just find a way to rid themselves of the contract. Because he's good enough. I mean, he's not bad. It's just he doesn't fit what the Penguins do. So, yeah, I think that's something they need to try and work on. I'd imagine that Ron Hextall is probably working on it, because like I said last week with Dumoulin, like, if you move out a $4.5 million cap hit and you fill that defensive spot from within, that's your money to keep Brian Rust right there if you choose to do so.
Definitely.
And I mean, I'm not worried about keeping Malkin and Letang from a money perspective, because Malkin is going to have to take a pay cut. Like, I'd expect his next contract to come around like 6.5 or 7 million. And then Letang, I don't know. I don't know what his contract's going to be like. I think that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be stunned and angry when he makes maybe $1 million more on his next deal because of how good he's been over the past 1.5 to 2 years now. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
definitely possible. I mean, Gino, I remember seeing a report that Gino wanted like 9 or 10 million on his next deal, and I thought that was even before his injury and everything. I thought he was aiming way too high. I didn't think he was going to be worth that to begin with, but yeah, I think that's probably a realistic thing. I don't know if Gino would, the thing is like even if that's what the Penguins did offer, I still think that Gino would get more from another team somewhere else. I don't know where it would be now, but I'd say that he could definitely still get somewhere in that 8 or 9 million range, just because a team's gonna buy into the hype, obviously, because it's getting Malkin. Why wouldn't you? So
Yeah. And, this is the thing. And like, this is something that none of us know about. How much does he still prioritize being with Sid?
yeah,
How much does he prioritize sticking here and sticking it out and being and having it just be him and Sid forever, you know? Because I feel like we've seen so many times, like where it's like, oh, Malkin wants to go be on his own team, do this, do that. But now we're to a point now where Malkin signed somewhere. It's probably not his team anymore. Like he's going to be second fiddle to somebody. And it's going to be somebody a whole hell of a lot worse than Sidney Crosby is. Like you really think that he's going to go sign in Calgary to play second fiddle with Sean Monahan? Or
not
some
wrong.
random crap like that. I don't know. I'm just like throwing out random ass hypotheticals at this point, but I don't know. I think that, I think he's going to stay, but at the same time, I'm just going to come out and say it now. If you had to pick one, I would prioritize Letang. I think that that's where we're at. I think that the numbers speak for themselves in the sense of, obviously Sid's the best player, but I think the most important player that's been on the roster for the past 12 to 15 years has been Chris Letang. The team goes as he goes. Everybody, a certain human being, a certain individual loves to just tweet from his basement and bring up about how they won in 2017 without Chris Letang. But a lot of that was because Matt Murray was on something that spring. And like literally, like they got into the Ottawa series and Matt Murray came in and was just god tier for a month, So yeah, I mean, that's that. I think, and my main takeaway from my little rant is just because you're not getting the instant gratification of them scoring goals and winning games does not mean that you need to hit the panic button yet. Like they're there. I mean, and they're in a lot better spot right now than they were in the 15-16 season where they went off and won the cup, Like, I think this team's better equipped to do the damn thing than the team that won 6 years ago. That's just me talking. The only worry would be goaltending potentially, but I'm of the thinking that Jarry can go off and have a good swagger and a good energy about him, similar to what Jordan Binnington did for the Blues, and just go off on a tangent for 3 months. If it came down to it. And real quick, just to touch on, the Maple Leafs are playing a whole hell of a lot better since they've shook up their lines and deep pairings. Nylander's back with Matthews, which is fantastic. You love to see it. And they put Marner back with Tavares. I mean, they've played really, really well. And it's huge that they're playing this well because they're doing all of this without Peter Mrazek being healthy. I know that Jack Campbell's the number one, but like if you have both of them healthy, you have potential to win every night. And now Jack Campbell has to play basically every night because they don't want to have their backup come in, I'm looking right now to see who the Leafs backup is right now. I think it's Ian Scott, but I don't want to make a mistake. I lied. It's the other one. It's Joseph Wool. So that's something. And the big thing they're gonna have to clear cap at some point. They're gonna try and clear cap, I think, and upgrade the right side of their defense. I would not be surprised if they somehow pull off an insane trade or near the deadline where Dubas once again just, puts his hand in the ring and says, we're going to find a way to trade for Damon Severson. I think it makes all the sense in the world. Like, I think of guys that I would want potentially playing with Morgan Riley, and there's been not a lot of guys that make sense to me more than Damon Severson at this point, because they tried the big rugged defensive defenseman thing with Riley, and it doesn't really work particularly well. They need someone like Severson that can move the puck, but is also skilled enough and defensively intelligent enough to cover for Riley so that he can go take the shots up the ice. Because, I mean, let's be honest. Do you really want Morgan Riley playing the stretch run with the corpse of Josh Manson on his right side, like everybody's been screaming about for 2 to 3 years? I don't think you do.
No, probably not.
And I'll go ahead, Scotty.
I was just agreeing with you. I mean, you're right.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, I think Travis Dermott's been fine there. I don't really, again, like Leaf fans are always like, oh, we need to keep upgrading, have the super team. But like, honest to God, I think they could win a playoff round with Travis Dermott playing with Morgan Riley, just do anything as long as you don't have Justin Hull in there, you're okay. And they've proven that over the past 2 weeks.
So if you were Toronto and you were trying to ship out, say, a Justin Hull, where would you send him to? Because I saw a couple rumors saying that given how thin the Penguins have been on the blue line, they should look into it.
I will say this right now. If they do give up assets for Justin Hull, this podcast will see the biggest temper tantrum it's ever seen. You thought Jarry flipping the puck to Josh Bailey was bad. That'll be like, I will be literally mad online if they trade for Justin Hull. He's that bad. And one of my buddies asked me about this, and I tried to explain to him, I'm like, they'd be better off running Chad Ruweel and Mark Friedman out there every night than they would, paying $2 million for Justin Hull to run around and do what he does. But to answer your question, Scotty, I think Chicago would make sense. And I think the Islanders would make sense as well. They're a team that's looking for some defensive upgrades. I know that I think Lou has looked into both Justin Hull and Travis Dermott, so the potential is there. But if I were the Maple Leafs, I would try offering Justin Hull with a draft pick of some sort attached to him to the Blackhawks to try and get Dylan Strome out of there. I think that that's reasonable. Not really to play in a third line role. David Kampf has been awesome at the third line center role for the Maple Leafs. But I think, if you were to get Dylan Strome, play him with Tavares and Marner on the wing, or play him with Matthews and Nylander on the wing, and just let him find his game again and get his career back on track, because they're gonna have to trade Alex Kerfoot just because of the fact that man makes $3.5 million and just kind of chills there, because whenever they're fully healthy, they could run Ilya Mikheyev in the top 6 and survive with the way that they're currently assembled, and depending on how the leg heals for Nick Robertson, I think that that's also a possibility as well. Running him in the top 6 with either Matthews or Tavares. So yeah.
Definitely. Just going back to what because I'm kind of just stuck on it, as far as potential defenseman that could help out the Pens right now. What do we think of Mark Pissick? What do you think of him?
I wouldn't hate him because like if they can fit him into the cap, whenever everybody gets healthy again, that's the ultimate like sixth or seventh defenseman, you know? Like I feel like a lot of people think about, trying to catch lightning in a bottle like you did with Cody Cece. And I think if you were to able to get Pysyk, I think that's more than doable and more than respectable. What do you think about that, Peyton?
You said Pizik, or was it Pizik you said?
Yeah.
I mean, he's all right. Like you said, I wouldn't hate it. I think there might be, some other options that whatever they do, they definitely need to do it ASAP. We mentioned earlier, Mike Matheson just has to go right now, ASAP. There's a lot of choices out there, and whatever they're gonna do, they got to make sure that they get the right decision. Pizik, I mean, if he just plays like, you know, third pairing minutes, I think that'd be fine. But
Yeah, the hockey nerd in me has always wanted this for many years. I would love for them to trade for Ilya Lyubushkin from the Coyotes. Like that guy's the ultimate like third pairing defenseman that can just drive the puck up the ice and play the possession game while still being sound as can be defensively. And another person to bring up and touch on, Jason Demers is chilling in free agency right now. I'm not really sure what his deal is, but he's out there. And I mean, that's a more than capable NHL defenseman right there if you needed him. Similar to how they just kind of brought Yannick Weber in last year out of necessity. But I really like where they're at. And I understand, like, I also understand some people talking about how when they're fully healthy, they'd love to push Chad Weedle into like a seventh defenseman role again. But like, he's been so good that like, you really don't need to do that. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's been ready to be a more than capable NHL fifth or sixth defenseman since 2018. I feel like he's been waiting for this opportunity for a while. And I think he has the potential to be perfectly fine back there, similar to like how Mark Eaton used to be for the Penguins 10 years ago.
Yeah, I think Ruido's been one of those guys who he's never really gotten a fair shake. There's always seemed like there's someone who's gotten, leapfrogged over him at some point. So it wouldn't shock me if that happens again, obviously, because I mean, if we're being honest, Mark Friedman has not been bad this year. He's held his own for the most part, but so has Ruido when he has been in the lineup. So I think he could go either way with that if he wanted to.
Yeah. Plus, not to beat a dead horse more than I've already beaten it, but like POJ's been okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like he hasn't looked that bad this time around. Like you can tell that he's like slowly like growing into his body in a sense. And that's kind of translated into his play this go around. The thing that excited me the most was they were actually out of necessity. They were able to assemble POJ on a pairing with John Marino, which is something that I think I would say all three of us have been curious about for quite some time now, where it's like, if you can do that and maybe either move Marcus Pettersson up or down in the lineup, that would be ideal, because we all know that, I mean, and I think of it this way, like, look at what Marcus Pettersson's able to do for John Marino. Imagine what he could potentially do for Chris Letang if he were playing with him. Like that's something that I would love to see them explore. I think that's the thing that I'm most curious about outside of, the potential of giving Brian Rust his own line. But yeah, do you guys have anything else? Okay, cool. Because I'm trying to wrap up here real quick. All righty, guys. Well, this has been another episode of Forechecking TV. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Forechecking TV, subscribe to us on YouTube, and look for us wherever you get your podcast from.